Hello, everyone. How are you?
Hi, everyone.
So, we are here today to talk about some basic principles of ATR. Welcome to Foundations of Faith. I am Hounsi Sole, and I am here with my dear sister and friend Omo Moare. You want to take a moment to introduce yourself, say a few things before we get started?
Yes, I am Omowari Ogbonyomi. I am a godchild of Priestess Oshun Funke and part of the Orisha Hoodoo Institute and the owner of Enchanted Vibes, which some of you already know that. And I am very happy to be teaching this class alongside one of my favorite people on the planet because I fangirl for you occasionally.
I fangirl for you. I think you're so dope. Okay. Yeah, we could do this all day.
We could.
Yeah. But so I'm Hounsi Sole, goddaughter of Huganzo. I'm one of the priestesses over at the Voodoo Institute, and right now I'm the resident life coach over at Black Spectrum Network. And this is a class that we planned a while ago, just because we both in our conversations came to realize that there's a lot of misinformation out there, specifically around things that some people may take for granted when they are first finding themselves interested in learning about ATRs, making decisions about whether or not they want to initiate. So we just wanted to come on and share our opinions, our experiences, and kind of demystify some assumptions that we see people kind of make pretty regularly. Um, that's pretty accurate about what we're doing today, right?
Yes. It was more of a in some cases it's y'all lost y'all's mind a little bit, and we gotta we gotta reel some of this stuff back in because there's a lot going on in ATR in general. There's a lot going on with a lot of scammers are out there. There's just a lot going on, and so we just needed to clear some things up. And there's a lot of misconceptions about um, the standards of ATR and the protocol and a lot of things. So we're clearing it up.
Yes, absolutely. So we wrote down a few points that we want to go over, just to kind of talk about some patterns that we've seen, things that we feel like you need to consider. Where do you want to start? I think that we should just start from the beginning, which is talking about some of the bad habits that we've seen people come into practice with. A
Yes.
lot of us are escaping church hurt. A lot of us have specific wounds that we've gotten from, the Black Christian church. And there's a lot of undoing, a lot of unlearning that we
Yes.
need to do. And so we've seen some consistent bad habits across the board. You want to go ahead and start talking about the first one?
Um, I'll let you do the first one because the way you worded it always makes me laugh. I absolutely love the way you worded that. But I will say, the first one I really want to talk about is no self-reflection. Um, People think, um, for whatever reason, that they don't need to dive into self. They'll do shadow work, but they don't really dive in deep about what it is that needs to happen going forward. Meditating, journaling, writing in a grimoire is one of the big ones that I see people not really doing. They're not really documenting their process. They're just kind of flying by the seat of their pants, doing what feels good, which is fine. But then, how do you, if you keep having the same problem, or if the problem comes up again, you don't have any reference to go back to. You don't have any documentation. You don't have something that can keep you anchored, essentially. So that was one of the biggest ones I wanted to point about bad habits is people aren't really reflecting in themselves, and they're asking everybody else questions instead of reflecting in themselves with meditation and journaling and really getting to the root of some of their issues. They want other people to fix it. And that's not how this works.
Yes, I agree. I do see a lot of people pushing their responsibilities, their spiritual responsibilities onto others, right? And that lack of reflection is a part of that. There's nothing more frustrating than as a priest is somebody coming to you in a huge state of panic, you calming them down, doing their divination, and then before you could even finish, they're like, I thought that, I knew that. And it's like, okay, well then why did you?
Then why are we here, baby?
Why are you here?
Like, you could have kept that $77.
Exactly. So what you're telling me is that you wasted my time because had you just calmed down, had you just did the basic work of sitting with yourself and listening to spirit, you could have came up with these answers on your own, you know, and getting people to understand that routine, that discipline, that is the work. Like, and you can't push that off on other people. In fact, when you waste time trying to push it off on other people, all you do is prolong your blessings. All you do is prolong your progress, you know? Yeah, it's a frustrating dynamic to witness.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. So I want to talk about popcorn prayers because that's another one of the bad habits that I see people bring, especially from the Christian church, over into ATR practice, right? Where we think that, you know, because we were taught that Jesus was a genie and that we can just go to him anytime we have a problem, and it doesn't matter how bad our character is, it doesn't matter how like lazy we've been, if we just come in these moments of dire complication and throw ourselves to our knees, our wishes will be granted, right? And sometimes that's true, but majority of the time it's not, especially if spirit has been in conversation with you for a long time about what you need to do and you've ignored your work. That's not how it happens, right? So these kind of popcorn prayers where you just pop up out of nowhere, you pray for something to happen and then you lose your entire routine. You just disconnect. You stop talking from these spirits. Like, that's not acceptable in these practices. It's not. You can't just beg for things and then disappear. There are a lot of consequences that come from behaving that way.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it's like the faith without works type of situation. You cannot just ask and ask and ask and ask and do zero work to get those things. If you are praying for something specific, like a better job, that doesn't mean you just get to sit around. You still have to apply for better jobs. You still have to further your skill set so that you can get a better job. Because if you only have an entry-level experience and you only know how to do entry-level work, you can't get a better entry-level job. That's not how that works. You have to level yourself up so that your prayers can be answered. You have to give your ancestors a way to make this prayer happen. They can't make things fall out of thin air with no work or effort behind them.
And that's where that character and routine comes into play. You guys probably hear me talk about Maxwell Maltz a lot. If you're annoyed, I apologize, but I don't know what to tell you. The work is foundational. But in his book about self-image, he talks about that, right? Where it's like people will ask for a job, they'll pray for a job, and then they don't do shit in the meantime while they're waiting to like change their energy, change their vibration, right? So you're sitting there worried about getting a job, but then you're sleeping until noon every day, right? You're laying in bed worrying. You're playing video games. Like you're
on Facebook.
You're doing on Twitter. All these things that aren't going to bring you closer to a job because you're not applying yourself. But even if you got the job tomorrow, what's going to happen? I'm sure that they're not okay with you sleeping until 11 a.m. and coming in when you feel like it, right? So you've done nothing in your life to show the universe, to show spirit that you're ready for this blessing that you're asking for, right? So again, you can't just rely on your popcorn prayers. You can't just pray for things for a few minutes and then wonder why you're not seeing any movement, because not only are the prayers weak because they're not consistent, they're not built on any routine, but your actions aren't in alignment with the things that you're praying for, right?
Exactly. And that goes into poor consumption as well, which is another one of our points. If you are not feeding yourself positive things, you're not going to have very many positive things to live off of. It's okay to be on Facebook and be entertained. It's okay to watch P-Valley or whatever else it is that you like to watch, but you have to keep some sort of balance between those things and the things that are actually making you a better person, whether that's spirit or spiritual things. It could be something working out. It could be eating better, which is another point, poor diet. Like, you really have to, and this goes back into self-reflection, you really have to work on yourself at all times. These things are actually all very connected. But you have to work on yourself at all times in all ways. If you are stagnant, then you can't expect movement in stagnant energy.
Absolutely. And like, I know people have complicated relationship to this phrase of speaking life, right? Speaking life into other people, speaking life into yourself, but that's a real thing because our communication is a form of consumption too, right? And you mentioned Facebook. Like, if you are just hanging out on Facebook and reading fuck shit all day, like, how is that helpful for you because of the information that you're feeding to yourself, right? But that's real. You have to give yourself living information. You have to give yourself information that's going to help you in terms of, staying in your progress and opening up your mind and helping you be disciplined. And if you're not, then of course your thoughts are going to be messed up. And how can you be in alignment? How can you pray? How can you manifest? How can you have these connections to spirit when your mind and your heart is deeply cluttered with all this really, really toxic information, right? Another thing about how you speak, whenever I do any kind of prosperity work with somebody, one of the first things I talk about is, okay, well, how are you talking about your money, right? Because if you're walking around calling yourself broke every 5 minutes, can you really be shocked when that's what you fed yourself over and over again about your reality, right? Even when it comes to love, like, I attract fuck niggas. Okay, you just told the information. You just told the universe to keep giving you fuck niggas. Like, you have to be mindful. You have to be careful about what it is you're feeding yourself. The food is important too, because some of you guys eat horribly. And like, it's one thing to have like your little vice foods that you go to every now and then, but if you are living on a hot Cheeto diet, it's going to be hard for you to be connected to spirit because you're eating a lot of chemicals and honestly technology. Like, I love an Impossible Nugget too, but that's not real food, right?
Listen, I be trying with them Impossible burgers, and yes, they taste good, and they in some cases do taste just like meat, but that's not natural.
Not natural.
We can't fall on that. Just eat a damn, just eat some water.
Vegetable.
Eat a vegetable. Eat some fruit. Try to find fruit with seeds in it. I know that's hard.
Yes.
Try to find the fruit with seeds. If you can get it from a farmer's market, if you can get it from, I have a few places here in Columbus. I live in Ohio, so we grow shit all year round. There's always something, hella corn, right? But we do have a lot of farmers markets here. We have a lot of farms here, actually, where you can literally walk. They have like a shop in the farm, and you can go in and walk in and buy things that they grew. Some of them have local honey because they have bees on site somewhere, because they have acres and acres and acres because, colonizers. But anyway, they have all these things available to us. And yeah, it costs a little bit more, but when you're feeding yourself healthy, that's another thing about money. Yes, it costs more to eat better. However, if you are spending that money on healthy things, that money will always come back to you.
It's going to come back to you. Yeah.
That is just a law of nature, and currency, and the flow of currency is something that people really don't truly understand. And you always have money for the things that you want. So if you want to eat better, you will always have money to eat better. You just have to change your mentality about what it is that's actually important to you.
Absolutely. I think what you just said is really important, changing your mentality about what's important to you. Because once you change your mentality, a lot of the excuses that we come to rely on go out of the window, right? I'll hear people say that they don't want to eat healthy. Well, the expense is one part. Then another thing is convenience, right? But it's like getting that apple and cutting it up, or getting those grapes and washing them, is far more convenient than getting in your car and driving to get takeout, right? So
Baby.
it's like there's these myths that we taught ourselves over time, and we really got to let that go, because it becomes a justification for putting poisons into our body, and we got to check ourselves about it.
Right. And there's also ways to compromise. Like, it's not saying that you have to sit there and eat raw fruit and vegetables every day. But baby, listen, get you some broth. Okay. And if you don't want to buy broth, boil some water, put some seasonings in it, and then go on ahead and put you some carrots and potatoes in there and just let them cook.
And a couple bones, and you'll be all right.
And you'll be fine. If you got a little bit of meat, like especially if you have a little bit of like pot roast or something like that, because you still want to eat meat. Ain't nobody saying you got to be vegan, but get you a small little piece of roast. Put that shit in a. I did this yesterday. Put it in a crock pot and leave it alone. Walk away. Do it early. Do it when you first get home. Do it before you go to work, and put it on low. It'll be fine. It will be fine. And then your food will be ready. It'll be a home cooked meal. And you're not eating Burger King and all the chemicals that they spray on it, which I love Burger King. I love you, Burger King, but that's not the point.
We can't love it all day, every day. It can't be the staple of our diet, right?
Every day. Okay.
Yeah. And that was something that I had to realize, because I remember getting frustrated in the beginning, because some of the things that I would see people put on their altars, I was like, what is that? But then I had to remind myself, okay, well, people are thinking it's okay to feed that to them, their ancestors, because that's what they're eating. And so we have to have bigger conversations about why it's not okay to be consuming these things on a regular basis, why some of this stuff isn't actually food, and how it literally clogs you up energetically. If you don't believe me, guys, go get an aura reading. You guys will see it. The evidence is there. Like, when you are eating this trash on a regular basis, it's going to impact you energetically. So it's not about access shaming or body shaming or any of the other things that people, tend to hear when we have these real conversations. It's not about that. It's about you giving your body what's going to make you the best vessel so that you can hear and receive spirit. Because honestly, a lot of you guys that are saying that you can't hear certain messages, that you can't receive, it's because your vessel is not clean. And so what's going to clean it? Putting healthier things into it, drinking more water. Like, these are basics, but you can't get around the basics.
You can't. And I literally just taught a class at the end of August about faith and fasting, and how important fasting is to faith, regardless of which faith that you are. You could be Christian, you can be Buddhist, you can be whatever it is that you are. You could be trying to figure it out. It doesn't matter. If you don't even like the label of religion and all that other stuff, fine. But you still need to fast in certain ways. That doesn't mean starve yourself. That's not what fasting is. But changing your eating habits, even if it's just substitution, is still fasting. Adding fruits and vegetables is still a form of fasting. Yes, you should restrict yourself from cupcakes and Oreos. I'm talking to myself, but you still, doing positive things instead of always having a negative connotation about fasting. Yeah. And replace it with something positive will definitely help. So instead of making it seem like you're punishing yourself, you're giving yourself a reward in a different form of reward. Reward doesn't always mean vice. Reward doesn't always mean this, oh, I'm not supposed to do this, but my reward is I get to do this. Like, that's not what rewards always are. Rewards are anything that makes you better. Rewards are anything that makes you happy. Rewards are anything that furthers your progress in life, spiritually, physically, with relationships, anything. All of that is considered a reward. It's not just Oreos and Hennessy. Those aren't the only rewards.
Yeah, we have to clear the space. We have to make sure that our bodies are clear. Do you want to go into the next topic?
Yes.
Okay. I'll let you start this one.
Oh, Sunday Christians. Oh, Sunday Christians. So it's funny how some people are only in this state of praise while they are physically in the church or on the live stream or whatever it is. And then those other 165 hours of the week, it's some foolishness and fuckery. Just absolute craziness. And people make jokes. There's this whole thing about the church girl song, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's going off on, all the Christians are going off on Beyonce about church girl. But this is exactly the person that listens to that song and loves it is the person that we are talking about. Mm-hmm. These people, and live your life, do whatever you want to do, but don't be all holier than thou about your lifestyle, knowing full well that no one that's technically in your religion would condone any of the things you do outside of that building. That's the trick. That's the key. Live your life however you want to live it. That's you. But own all of that. Own 100% of yourself. Not just the part of you that shows up to church. Not just the part of you that shows up to work. Not just the part of you that, gets your kids ready for school in the morning. The part of you that's at the club that's shaking their ass is you too.
Yes.
And if that is you, be all of you. Now, do people at work need to know about the person at the club? No, not necessarily. But you can't pretend like the person at the club don't exist.
Yes.
That person is still there. That is still part of you. Mm-hmm. So, and for some people to just, I'm just this great holy person. I sing in the church and I go to Bible study on Wednesdays. And I do my little missionary work on Tuesdays, and I donate, and I do all this, and I'm just, doop, doop, doop. And then Beyonce's church girl comes on, and they twerking, which is fine. But then in church, when they're talking about church girl, they're like, oh, yeah, that's crazy.
The hypocrisy.
Oh, my God. I can't believe they do that. Oh, don't do that. Don't do that. Don't be a hypocrite. And that is one of the biggest things of church hurt that we really have is the hypocrisy that is in churches, because we have people who live one way on Sunday and live a whole different way any other time, or they leave church on Sunday and go straight to fuckery and foolishness. It ain't even just Sunday. It's not even the whole day of Sunday. While they are in the building, sometimes before they even leave the parking lot, they already just started some foolishness. They was in church texting their sneaky link.
They was getting ready, yeah.
While their husband sitting next to them, texting their sneaky link in the church. So let's not do that, okay? Let's not do that.
Yeah. I think that's the thing that's frustrating about Sunday Christians for me. I was raised Baptist. And I attended an evangelical school, which, child. But the thing that I've noticed in that time about Sunday Christians is that there's so much of a focus on the performance, right, of proper Christianity just within that space of the church and within that time frame of Sunday morning and Sunday afternoon, and an ignoring of everything else that is responsibility after that, right? So it ends up being this like really messed up lack of integrity where it's like, okay, well, as long as I impress man, right? As long as I impress other people in this really particular context, that makes me a good Christian. It doesn't matter that I'm not treating my children right. It doesn't matter that I'm not being attentive to my partner. It doesn't matter that I'm not supporting my community. And it's like, no, all of that does matter, right? Because if you're not living in integrity with these words that are being preached, what is even the worth of that performance that you're putting on for people for those few hours every Sunday? It's not really doing anything, right?
It isn't. And I don't know if you've ever kind of met someone, especially in church, where you just thought they were just like this wonderful person. And they were just so amazing. And in some ways, I don't want to say idolized, but you really looked up to them, especially if it was an older person. You really looked up to them. And then you find out who they really are. And it's like crushing and kind of traumatic depending upon who they actually are, especially when it comes into the case of like child molesters or preachers who are stealing money, or, you know, have outside kids. That can be really traumatic
Yes.
for some people, especially for children, because, you know, there's the gossiping in the church. People pretend like there's no gossiping because we're all holier than thou, but most of them are in church. Like, oh, you see, she ain't got no stockings on. Like, what? Why are we doing this? Why are we doing this? But like that can really mess some people up, and that really puts a bad taste in your mouth about Christian. But it's really about anybody, any religious person. It's not even just Christianity. There's people in ATR that are like that. There's somebody that has I don't know the person's name, but I know it's somebody that is in the voodoo community, and they are just like a really bad person. A really bad person, a scam artist. They sexually imposition people for work or for
advancement,
positions and titles and ceremonies and initiations and all types of stuff. And that is really harmful to everyone. It doesn't, and like I said, it's not just Christianity. It happens everywhere, but that stuff can really be a distraction to your life purpose. And if you allow it, like those females knew that wasn't the way to go. But they chose that easy way. They chose the easy way because they themselves had a lack of integrity.
And we're trying to skip steps, which is something we're going to talk about.
Yeah. So yes, the leaders are responsible in a certain way. And yes, as leaders, we have to be above reproach in certain things, but we are still human. But at the same time, people who are part of the congregation and part of the community really have to daily evaluate how they have contributed to the negative things in their life, and then kind of change that, especially as it relates to spirituality. Because if you're running around here talking about people behind their back, you're messy as fuck, doing weird shit, you got weird bitch energy, you come in these groups and you start talking crazy just because you have a title that you think matters. When us here, I will tell you, at Arisa Hoodoo, don't give a damn.
No one cares.
Okay, I don't care about which parts of African spirituality you come from, and you gonna come here and tell us that we doing it wrong. That's great that you feel that way, but why are you in our space?
Exactly.
You're in the wrong space. Stay in your space. Stay with like-minded people. And if you don't like where people are going, just exit. That's all you got to do is exit. But choosing to be messy, choosing to be extra, choosing to be negative shows that you don't have the integrity that you are claiming.
Yeah. I see Ren Miraculous left a comment, and they said that they were pretty close with the pastor and first lady at their church, but their relationship wasn't healthy outside of church. And the way that the first lady would dog people out every other day was like, no, ma'am. That's real. That's real. And it sounds like this particular first lady was also dealing with a point that Omo Morare brought up earlier, which is that lack of reflection, right? If this was somebody who was aware of their own feelings and had been taking inventory of what was going on with them, they would have been able to realize, like, I don't like the fact that my relationship is out of alignment with what we present. Let me deal with that. But because this wasn't somebody who does that, they were projecting and fucking with other people on a regular basis, which is another part of the reason why we have to be engaged with self-reflection, right? A lot of times we can easily want to blame our environment or our outside circumstances on other people. But a lot of times it has to do with the fact that we're not taking care of our own shit. So, and it sounds like this first lady was one of those people.
And that goes into the next one. And I wrote this on purpose because we've said it, and I've said it previously, and I know that I've heard other people say it. Now, usually it's a joke, but some people say it for real. God knows my heart. Sir, stop cheating on that woman. Okay? Stop doing it. Stop doing that. Ma'am, stop yelling at them kids like some little niggas on the street.
Yes.
It doesn't matter if God knows your heart. The people around you don't know your heart, and those are the people that you are hurting. So you got.
And is God pleased with your heart? Because if you have the heart of a woman that's going to scream at children because you don't like your life, I don't know if that's in alignment with God.
I don't think that it is. I don't think that's in alignment with any version of God on this particular plane. Every version of God that I have come in contact with is more benevolent than that. It's more of keep a calm, cool, collected head. Be respectful, be loving, even when you feel people don't deserve it. That is the God that most of us have come to know. Does God have moments where he's sick of our shit? Absolutely. Because we do fucked up shit. However, it doesn't mean that we get to do this whole fake repentance and ask for forgiveness and then keep doing the exact same stuff. And just because we are not Christians doesn't mean we believe in being rude, disgusting people either. There's still a sense of morality in African religions. You can't, though we don't really necessarily believe in hell, we don't really believe in a devil. There's not some guy with pitchforks waiting to like burn us for eternity. We don't do that. We don't believe in that. However, that doesn't mean go out here shooting people. It doesn't mean fighting people just because they looked at you funny. It doesn't mean hexing that girl because your baby dad is sleeping with her. That doesn't mean hexing your baby dad because he's sleeping with some girl. It doesn't mean any of those things. Be a better person within yourself, and then better things will come to you. Does that mean you will never have hardship? No. But you're attracting all this mess and fuckery because you exude mess and fuckery.
Exactly. So I just want to take a moment to talk about the fake repentance too. It's not repentance if you know you're going to do it again. It's really not.
No, it's not.
If you know you're not going to do it again. There's a man in my community, I'll say it that way. A man in my community routinely cheated on his wife. And every time he would cheat and she would leave, it was this demonstrative thing where he would fall out and get drunk and cry to God, and I'm going to change, and I'm going to, And this went on for a literal decade. And then finally, when she didn't come back, it turned into, well, I don't believe in God anymore because I've been forsaken. No, that's not how it goes. God doesn't cease to exist because you can't be in integrity with your word. Like, that's not how that works. And also, just like, spirits have personalities, just like people have personalities, and most of us get sick of folks who lie to our face. So if you get to a point where you end up losing something or you have a huge sacrifice, that has nothing to do with, the validity of spirit or of God, but you can't just do the same fuck shit over and over again and not think that there are consequences, that you're going to have suffering in your life, that you're going to see the results of your poor actions, right? Repentance, the part of the definition of repentance is that you don't do it again. Right?
Or you at least try not to.
Yeah, you make the effort to change your actions as you move forward. But if you ask for forgiveness knowing that you're going to turn right back around and do the same shit, that's not repentance, that's lying.
And if you only feel bad because you got caught, that's not repentance or being sorry either. Because if you are out here cheating and get caught, man or woman, and you only feel bad because you got caught because you wasn't sorry about it when you was doing it, then you're not actually sorry. That's fake repentance. If you're out here, raping, molesting, any type of sexual crimes, if you're not sorry until you get caught and you get put in jail for the rest of your life, then that's also fake repentance. You didn't see the error of your ways. You got caught and now you got to go to jail. Same thing if you're out here killing people. If you're stealing people, that lady who got caught stealing all that money in that state down there that you in, You stole millions of dollars from a big major city, and now you want to call on God. No, no, and no, because you was cool when you was taking your wife out to them dinners. You was cool when you was buying them clothes. You was cool when you was stunting for your friends and stunting for other people. You were cool doing all of that, and you were never remorseful until you actually got caught. That's fake repentance, and nobody cares, and nobody feels sorry for you. I don't care if you are of the beautifulest color of melanin with the best of things. Wrong is wrong, and that person was dead wrong.
I agree. God knows my heart. I feel like that that phrase in particular has become so overused that it doesn't even mean anything anymore.
No, because it doesn't matter that God knows your heart, because like I said, you up here you not hurting God. You hurting your kids, you're hurting your spouse, you're hurting your parents, you're hurting your siblings, you're hurting your friends, you're hurting yourself. Do you know your heart?
And that's one of the biggest things, and I know we're going to talk about that in a little bit, but that's one of the worst things about Western Christianity or Western religion in general, is that it's so me, I. And it's like, okay, well, even if you manage to get what you want in this situation, why are you okay with like causing these ruptures in community? Why are you okay with letting your community be collateral damage? Like, you have to have regard for the people around you. Like, that's not okay.
That's like that lady. I don't know where I saw this, and I don't even know who told me. Oh, okay. I was having a conversation with a girl in the coven, and she was asked to do some work. And this person said out their mouth, I don't care what happens to his relationship, because this person wants somebody else that has expressed no interest in them whatsoever. They're not enemies, but they have expressed no interest in this person. They just want them. And so out their own mouth, they said, I don't care what happens to his actual relationship. I don't care about any about that. I just want him. Okay, well, why do you want him? Because I just feel good around him. Okay, but have y'all been talking or anything? Like, no, nothing like that. I just want him. Huh? What?
That is insane.
What are we doing?
That is insane.
What are we doing? That is another case of a lack of integrity. Because for what? Why do you want to destroy someone's life just to be selfish? And then use magic to do it. And since you don't know how to use magic yourself, you're going to get someone else involved, because you don't know the true power of magic and what it does and what it means and the consequences and the price that you have to pay. You just want shit.
You just want it. Also, y'all have to, and I don't want to get too far off on a tangent, so I'll make it quick. Y'all have to stop acting like other people don't have ancestors. Just because you want that situation doesn't mean that this other person's ancestors are okay with it and that they're going to let you just do any kind of thing to this person. That's insane.
That's a whole other topic, baby.
I know. That's we'll
we
save
do a whole video on that. Work. Why work? Why work? Don't be working the way you want it to work. That'll be the next joint class that we do. So the next one is a very interesting topic that people try to leave out, and they don't think it's important in ATRs. They think just because we leave Christianity that it's kind of like a free-for-all, and it's not at all. And that's protocol.
Let's talk about it.
There is protocol in every religion. There is protocol in any spiritual regimen. There is protocol. There is a right way, a safe way to do things. And there are a lot of safe ways. There are a lot of right ways. It's not just a one linear path. There are many paths you can take that are all green lighted. But y'all like to go straight for the red road sometimes. And The first one is respect for elders in the community. I'll let you start with this one.
A lot of y'all need to learn how to respect your elders, period. But especially if you're going to come into these walks of spirituality, you really have to learn how to respect your elders. Some of the things that I see you guys do are so egregious. And of course, I can only speak from my experience, and, you know, I'm protective of my godfather. But if I know if you guys are doing it here, you're probably doing it in other spaces, and you guys need to stop. If somebody has been in this spiritual practice for longer than you, even if they're younger than you, even if they are a gender that you don't necessarily feel like you have to defer to, whatever's going on, you need to let that shit go, because that person is still your elder. And you do not get to come in here. But elders within ATR are so important because they hold information. They are the ones that hold information about the rites of passages. They're the ones that are going to teach you and protect you and keep you from making a lot of mistakes and fucking up. So no, you can't come into this on some lone wolf shit. Like, there's no way to practice in an ATR without community, period, but especially not without the elders, because they are the ones that have put the work into understanding this information, knowing how to walk us through it, how to protect us, and how to give us things in a correct manner. Some of the ways that you guys think it is okay to talk to spiritual elders is mind-boggling. And you can interpret this as rude if you want to, but it tells me everything I need to know about your concept of parents, right? Because that's another thing. Our spiritual elders, they literally they are the spiritual mothers and fathers of this work. So we have to give them that same respect. And you guys don't do that. Like, you guys think that these are your homegirls and your homeboys, even though you don't know these fucking people, but you just make this familiarity with them that's not okay. Don't come into this being too familiar. Have some respect. Have a willingness to listen. Understand that you don't fucking know everything. Even if you are, you know, CEO, bad bitch, like, you know what I mean? Whatever in your life, you are not the expert here. So you have to have some humility. You have to have a willingness to respect your elders and hear them. And a lot of that respect comes down to the basics. Why aren't you using their title? This is not your friend.
Because I was about to say,
do not
sis me. Do not sis me. Do not sis Hounsi Sole. Do not sis Hounsi Say. Do not sis Hounsi LaBelle Levinas. Do not sis Priestess Pitch Blossom. Do not sis Priestess Ianifa Oshun Funke. Do not sis Quinteria Shakir. Don't do these things. Please, oh please, do not do these things. If you don't have the familiarity with me to text me on my phone directly where we can have a real conversation, don't sis me. If I'm teaching a class, if we have the ability to teach classes that people pay for, don't sis me. Don't do it. Don't do it, because I'm not. That's not me.
Yes. We're not your friends. We're not. And the fact that I have to say this to other people makes me feel old as hell. The amount of times that I have had to explain to people, like, look, I'm your spiritual elder, not your friend. I am your priestess, not your friend. Please do not approach me like I'm one of your little friends, right? And if you need to interpret that as me being arrogant, if you need, you know, to create a villain out of me, that's completely fine. But I'm always going to hold that boundary, because it's a boundary that I respect. I would never approach my spiritual elders the way that you guys think it's okay to approach some of us. And a lot of that has to do with, and I'm gonna go there, right now the community is deeply female, and I don't think you guys understand how many of you guys suffer from internalized misogyny. And it's really sad to witness. It is really sad to witness. And I don't know how you can take instruction from women who are spiritual elders if in the same time that you are coming to them, asking for them support, you feel a need to degrade them. It's weird. You can't have it both ways. But also, if you have that need to derogate women while asking of something from them, you have to interrogate why you think that's okay, because somewhere in your life you're accepting that behavior, and rather than breaking that in your life, you think that you can exert that over other women. So you really got to chill. I know I'm not making it up. I've literally had conversations with my Loa about this. Like, a lot of you guys have really deep internalized misogyny. And a lot of the spiritual blockages you deal with come from that, because you hate the feminine so much. And if you hate the feminine, that is a self-hate. Now, even if you're male, it's self-hate. But I'm not going to have that conversation today.
That's another class.
That's another class. But you guys really, really, really got to work on that shit, because, and I feel it sometimes in the way that you guys talk to me, especially when y'all are new. I can feel it. Like, I've had this conversation before. I've been like, a lot of this heat ain't got shit to do with me. It has everything to do with the fact that they don't know how to engage with women in a power position. But that's because you have put yourself in a position where you see yourself as so powerless that when you come across female authority, it agitates you. Rather than you being humbled by it and honored by witnessing it, you get agitated. Again, that's some shadow work shit. You got to work that out on your own, but you don't get to come into community and be disrespectful.
And people need to understand, because I see one of the comments, there's a difference between respect and ego. Those are not the same things at all. You can have respect for someone who has been in this practice longer than you by simply just calling them their name. Like, you don't need to think of pet names for people that you don't know on a personal level, because I assure you, as much as you see us, you don't know us on a personal level. And so to have that familiarity with people that, again, you can't even text in real life. Yeah. It's crazy.
Also, and here's another thing, and respectfully, Khadijah, you are letting me know by the nature of your question that you don't fully understand this walk, or like how we have found ourselves in a position to do this work. Because if we were in a space where we were so overcome by shadow work that we didn't have an understanding of our ego, there's no way that our spiritual parents would have even put us in a position where we have the space to do this work, right? Do you really think that Dr. Quintarius Shakir fucking Huganzo would let me be on a camera having these conversations if I didn't have an understanding of my ego, if I didn't have some sense of self-reflection? So again, like, I have already done this humbling and this working under the feet of an elder that I'm advising you to do. And because I've already done it, I know I have a healthy relationship to my ego. That's another part of the reason why you have to respect your elders. They are the ones that are going to put you through processes that give you permission to do certain things, or that help you work past certain issues so that you can help and support other people. But if I was still stuck in a space where I was being ruled by my ego, I wouldn't be here doing this. So, Khadijah, respectfully, I encourage you to take more heed to what it is we're saying. Look at your relationship to it and responsibility, rather than using this as an opportunity to encourage us to check our egos. Because going back to what I said, the only reason why I can imagine that you would feel like we have an issue with ego is because we are two women in a place of authority giving you guys information. There's something about that that probably makes you deeply uncomfortable. That's not an ego issue in either one of us. Most likely it's one within you.
And the last point I'm going to make is, because you just said it, Dr. Quintarius Shakir, I wouldn't address him by anything other than Dr. Quintarius Shakir or Hugan Zo. I'm sir. I'll call him sir.
Sir, yeah.
That's it. I don't call him anything else. I've talked to him on the phone. I've met him in person. I've hugged him, but I'm still not going to be disrespectful and have a lack of decorum when I am in his presence or talking to him or talking about him. And it doesn't matter if I'm talking to one of my little friends or I'm talking to somebody in our community. His name is his name. His title is his title. He has
And
earned
he
it. It
earned
is
every
his,
single one of them,
and
and you
I
need
will
to respect
address
it.
him as such every time. You don't go up to your doctor and start calling her Megan when her name is Dr. Jones. You call her Dr. Jones. You don't say, hey, Megan. You don't know her like that. You address her by her title because you are not one of her little friends. And it doesn't matter that you've been seeing her for 14 years and she's seen inside your coochie. Her name is Dr. Jones.
And another thing, and this is an alley-oop for something we're gonna talk about a little later. You would never assume that just because you covered your copay that you have some sort of familiarity or friendship with your doctor, right? And I know why you're falling out on Ray, but there are way too many of you guys that think that just because you pay us for a 15-minute reading that you've bought friendship with us. And that is not how that works. This is a profession. And I know that the prevalence of the profession is new because for so long we've done a lot of these practices, hush hush. We have, you know what I mean? The prevalence of this being a career that people do in a public way is very, very new, right? And so the fascination around it is very, very new, but it is still a profession. And so the same way that you would not pay your copay to your gynecologist and then assume that that means that you can message her at 3 a.m. or that you get to call her by her first name, or that you guys are homegirls and you can invite yourself to her house, don't do that weirdo stuff with your priests and priestesses. Because these are not, again, this is a profession. You are seeking a service. You are seeking a form of support. And it has to end there, right? And you have to respect those boundaries. So I love that doctor example because it's very much the same thing. We are giving prescriptive work that heals the same way your doctor would. So if you aren't going to text message your dentist at 3 a.m. about your baby's father, you need to question yourself about why you feel comfortable with doing that to us and why you have an attitude when we don't reply to your 3 a.m. text, right?
And that same type of familiarity that you guys tend to have with people with titles like a Hounsi or a Hugan or a Neg or a priestess, y'all have that with deity. Y'all think that y'all could just walk up to a deity and make them bend to your will somehow. And that's not how this works at all. Deity do not owe you anything, and they do not bend to the will of mortals. And that's any deity. It's regardless of what walk you're talking about. You could be talking about the goddess Diana. You could be talking about Baron. You could be talking about Oshun. You do not own them. And you cannot just think that you can come to them any old type of way and they're going to do what you say just because you said that you wanted them to do it. That doesn't work either.
You have to respect the protocol. You have to respect their standards. Honestly, like some of the things that you guys think is okay to do and still call on deity is honestly dangerous, right? I'll use an example that comes up a lot on Facebook for reasons that I'm still struggling to understand. Clean your house. Clean your house. Clean your body, right? Clean all of your vessels, whether it's your home or your physical body. For whatever reason, that hurts people's feelings, but you can get upset with me as the person giving the information, but for those of us on this walk, we know for a fact that there are certain deity that are not going to show up if your space is fucking filthy. There's certain deity that are not going to mess with you if you were filthy, right? Approach Frida's altar funky and see what happens. You know what I mean? Like it's basics, and you can't get around that stuff. It doesn't matter how good of a person you think you are. Yes, these spirits love you, but that doesn't mean that they're going to bend on what the standards are. No, and then again, that's another myth that has gotten projected in Western religion, specifically Western Christianity. This special snowflake syndrome. You are not such a special snowflake that the rules don't apply to you. And so when you break them, yes, there are consequences that come with them. And sometimes the consequences are dire. So you really got to ask yourself, like, is it worth it to me to be funky at my altar and possibly, have spiritual consequence? Or am I going to do this basic thing of taking care of myself, right?
And this goes right into the next part of routines. Discipline is that type of discipline will build your character. And ATRs are about character building, not about chasing power. Especially if you know anything about the Loa. The Loa, from my understanding, are basically principles of character. And when you don't follow those principles of basic character, there are consequences, like Hounsi Sole just said. Same thing with Orisha. They're not necessarily, they're more energies. They are the primordial energies that surround us at all times. So if you learn to manipulate energy, yes, you can learn how to work with them and get things to move in your favor. But you still have to approach them the proper way. At 4 a.m., I have to pray. And not every time do I wake up at 4 a.m. and brush my teeth. But if I think in my head, oh, go brush your teeth, I know I better go do it. Now, if I'm not even thinking about it and I just get down there and pray real quick, that's one thing. But if the thought pops in my head, go brush your teeth, bitch, I'm going to go get up and brush my teeth before I come to that altar. And if that means I'm 5 minutes later than what I'm supposed to be, that's just what it is. Because I came properly when I knew in my head that I needed to change something before I did it. And that's the part that y'all got to work on. If you get the thought that what you doing ain't, you got to fix something before you do it, then you should probably fix that thing before you come to them.
I see some of you guys are in the comments are dedicated to arguing with us about these facts. That is fine, but I'm not going to make space for it. Go argue with your mama. Or like these, like you again, you're proving what I said. You wanting to argue with me, the individual, about these facts that are universal. That says a lot more about you and where you are and the ways in which you are triggered than it does about me as the messenger. So we're going to continue to focus on the people that are getting it because that's what's most important at this time. But again, going back to this issue of protocol, there are consequences and the stakes are high. And that's something that you guys have to understand, right? That's why initiation is not something you should enter into haphazardly. That's why it's really important to understand these practices once you become interested in them. Because again, the stakes are high. Like right now, a lot of you guys are getting butthurt because you guys think that it's an ego thing. What we're talking about, we're not saying these things out of ego. We're saying it because we live this life. This is literally our lifestyle. We have seen a lot happen to people for not adhering to those rules. And we also, some of us may have had to learn the hard way because we weren't, listening to certain things in the beginning. So again, this is why listening to the advice of elders and people who walk the path is important. But if you want to bump your head and that's girl, more power to you.
I think people forget that part too. Like people like you and I, we actually do this every day. Like this is not in our spare time. This is a massive amount of our time. This isn't something we do as a hobby. This isn't some little parlor trick. This isn't when we have time. No, when I hear my ancestors yelling at me, I go do whatever the fuck it is they telling me to do. If they say go do a working, when I'm mad at this person, they say no, go do a working for their mental strength and their focus, then I had to get up and do it. And I didn't like it. And I told that person too. I said, I'm mad at you, but my ancestors told me to pray for you and actually do something for you. And so I really did it. And they laughed at me, but they know that it was real because I listened. And y'all don't listen. And I know you're not listening to your ancestors because you're not listening to the simple direction of us telling you to simply listen. But go off.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know what you're upset about, but you'll figure it out. But yeah, another thing is that there are absolute do's and don'ts. And when we say absolute, we mean absolute, right? Some of these things are non-negotiable, and that's the reality of the situation. So it's better to know what those non-negotiables are so that you can, protect yourself and have a healthy relationship, have a good experience. than it is for you to do things haphazardly and learn the consequences later, right?
Yes, especially when it comes to a deity of any form. You don't want to mess with somebody who can literally wipe you off the face of this earth. You don't want to mess with
and
that.
that happens. That's the thing that happens. Like, that's not a thing that we're making up. This is not a boogeyman situation. Like, we've heard stories, we've been taught about it, we know people that have messed themselves up. So when we talk about it, we're not just saying it to scare people. We're not representatives of the Christian church, so we're not creating boogeymans to frighten you. We've actually seen people go through some stuff. You will cut your life short playing, and that's not something that you want to do. It's not worth it.
And the discipline and character building and developing that you do, it actually prevents this like dependence that some people have on other people to do the work for them, and then B, the need to go back and correct it, because you shouldn't have to go correct your work at all.
Yeah. So your ES says this a lot. It's better to not know than to know and not do, right?
Yes.
And I think that's a difficulty that some of you guys don't want to acknowledge. Like, if you have the information and you argue down with somebody, the information is wrong because you're butthurt that it's coming from them. That's equivalent to you knowing and not doing, right? So just think about that. Think about whether or not it's worth it. Again, and that's another part of the reason why I tell people I'm not your friend. You know what I mean? You don't have to like me. I got enough. I'm very much blessed to be surrounded with a lot of love, right? So you not liking me because for whatever reason you've created, that doesn't take from me. It really doesn't. So again, focus on the information, focus on the knowledge, focus on making sure that you have the right thing so that you don't create obstacles in your life. Don't get so wrapped up in me. Yeah.
That goes back to the character
for a little bit.
What'd you say?
You want to talk about routine now?
Yeah, I was going to say that goes right back to character building. Like, you really have to build yourself and your character in any religion. You cannot leave that type of work out. Especially people think that just because we're spiritual and they assume that we are not also religious because they don't understand that it is actually a religion, which is fine. But then they just think that it's kind of like a free-for-all and that you can do whatever you want, and it's not. And like I said, it's about everything that we're doing is about character building. It's not about power. It's not about having a bunch of followers. It's not about having a bunch of godchildren. It's not about any of those things. It's about we're making ourselves better. In the process of us making ourselves better, other people notice. And then they're like, I like what you're doing. I'm going to follow you in what you're doing. And so we gain a bigger community that way. But it's not that we're going out and seeking out people to just come and follow us, because actually none of us wants it, because it's a lot of fucking work.
It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. It's really
a lot of work. That's that. And some of that is that you're going to have to do the same things repeatedly sometimes. You can't just say this one little prayer and then go on like you never made that prayer. You're going to have to sometimes say the prayer multiple times. There might be types of work that you're going to have to do multiple times. You may have to make this a regular thing in your practice. Ask your ancestors, divine about it. Divining should be one of those things that is a permanent fixture in your practice. If you're not divining with something, whether it be a pendulum, if you know how to really work with a pendulum, or tarot cards, playing cards, meditation, these things are things that you need all the time. You can't just pick up meditation and put it down when you want to. Meditation should be a foundational part of your practice. Regardless of what you practice, even if you're Christian, you need to sit with yourself and think and process what's happening instead of just going off on the first feeling that you feel. Because yes, gut feelings can be helpful, but sometimes our gut feelings are based in hurt from other places. And so we're not reacting properly. So you really have to sit and take time with these things and work on them constantly. Some things you will have to work on for the rest of your life. That's why Obatala ain't letting me go, because I need to work on my mouth and forgiveness. And so Obatala is like, nah, you're mine. Come here, sit down. All the time. All the time. I'm still wearing white. You know why? Because I don't listen. I listen because I'm still wearing white. But there's other parts that I don't listen. And so he's like, okay, yep, you're going to sit here for a while. You're just going to have to sit here. And I'm going to sit here until I figure out exactly what it is that he's trying to get me to really do and understand on a permanent level.
Yeah. It's interesting because so we've talked about the role of character development in ATR, but the huge part of the reason why character development is so important is because knowing your destiny is important, right? And when you know your destiny, you're going to be committed to doing everything that's going to make you walk in alignment with that, or at least you should be, right? And so that's another part of the reason why routine is so important, because that discipline around your character development is going to put you in a position where you're not always trying to do spell work to fix some shit, right? Or doing corrective spell work to get certain things. I think sometimes, especially people who come into this for the wrong reason, they're focused on learning how to craft medicines or how to craft prescription. It's like an information hoarding kind of thing. And if you just focus on what your path is and the character development that's necessary for that, you wouldn't even have to engage in this other stuff and constantly do all this corrective work. You know what I mean? So that's something else to really, really consider.
I'm mad that we both made the same comment at the same time.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just finished. I'm like, wait, what?
No, but yeah, that's something that's really important that I think for you guys to consider. I have seen people initiate or come into this walk, and even though they know what their destiny is, they don't make progress around it years later because they're focused on the wrong things, right? So again, that focus on power and information hoarding because you believe that that's going to bring you power is not the best place to focus. Focus on what your routines need to be. Focus on the habits that are going to help you develop character, because that's what all this is supposed to be about in the first place. It's not about collecting titles. It's not about flexing or flossing on other people. Sometimes when you think that it is about flexing or flossing on other people, you can get so wrapped up that when you hear somebody of authority talk, that you think that that's what they're doing when it's not. They're speaking from the place of knowledge that they've developed, right? And they're trying to help you not make certain mistakes. But you got to be really, really dedicated to your power, to your character development when you take this on, because not doing that can mess you up. That's another thing about the relationship to these deities. Most of them are working with us because they know what our path is, right? And so they chose us because they know that they're the ones that are going to help us live that path out. That's even more of a reason why the stakes are high and the consequences are high when we don't listen. Because us not being in alignment with our path isn't something, again, going back to this nature of community, it doesn't just mess us up. You can fall off your path and fuck up things for your bloodline because you were so busy chasing power, you were so busy chasing titles that you didn't do the things you needed to do in this iteration to set up a comfortable environment for the next one, right? So,
or you were chasing other things like money and dick instead of chasing
third class topic. Consequences of chasing money and dick.
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
And another thing about routines, since we're trying to be back where we need to be, because I have somewhere to be. When you're working with deity, don't just Google that deity one time and then do a working. You should really take the time to learn. And I would say learn from an elder. I would always tell you to learn from an elder before you start working with a deity. Go to your ancestors all day long. But if you're going to work with a deity, you need a mentor, because there are protocols with each deity, and each deity works differently. Oshun does not work the same as Barone. Okay. Papa Legba and Eshu, A, are not the same person, so please stop saying that. Mm-hmm. And B, they don't work the same as Hermes, which is kind of like a road of Eshu in some respects. So just because they have similar traits doesn't mean that you can go to them all in the same way. Mm-hmm. Learn what it is that they govern. Learn how they move. If there is astrological things, timing, days of the week, hours, numbers, mm-hmm. All that matters when you're working with deity. Mm-hmm. So make sure that you really take time to do that. That's both a routine and a protocol. You can just go ahead and go to Oshun and do something, but it might not work the way you wanted it to, because you didn't follow the protocol. And with like Frida, oh my God, she's strict. She is very strict. You cannot just go to her any old kind of way. She will have a fit, literally. She will have a fit, and you will suffer some consequences with her. And what was the one that Hugan just taught?
Ayazon.
Yes. Oh no, I'm not even finna fuck with that. I'm not
about to repeat what was in the class, just because if you guys want to know, you need to actually watch the class. But that's another reason. I don't remember the section it's in, so I apologize for jumping ahead. This is why you can't treat deity like Pokemon. They're not like, these video game like spirits that you call on when you're ready to, because a lot of times, part of the reason why we talk so much about responsibility is because there's so much responsibility that comes with working with certain deity. The amount of responsibility that comes with working with a spirit like Ayazon, the kind of consequences you can deal with when not being in integrity on your walk with Ayazon, watch the class. You guys will understand what I'm talking about. Like, you really have to know and understand these things before you just start calling on deity and working with stuff that you don't understand, right?
We can just skip to that part.
Let's go there.
Yeah, because we own it. It's ownership of deity. And they, again, like I said earlier, they don't owe you anything, and you cannot control them. Mm-mm. This is not like you summon me, master. How can I? They're not fucking genies. They don't owe you anything. This is not a consequence of a previous life for them. Mm-mm. This is their entire existence. This is energy that you are dealing with in most cases. This is deep-seated character, internal stuff that you have to deal with in order to even come to them correctly. You cannot demand or command a deity to do anything for you. They're not going to get you that ashy ass man back. They are not going to help you win the lottery. They are not going to smite your boss because they wrote you up because you were late every day for a week. You be better at you, and then deity will start stepping in to help you. Just be better at you first.
Mm-hmm. There's a phrase we use in Vodou, Seve Loa, and that's literally the reason why we're here. That's literally why the religion exists. You always need to be serving the Loa. Everything you do is to serve the Loa. And if you enter into this walk not understanding that, you will create some fuck up circumstances for you. None of this is about being able to call on them just to fix your problems, or, treating them like, like they're assistants. That's not what they're for. They're here to help you on your path and give you information. Yes. But again, they have their protocols. They have their standards. They have their agreements. So when you enter this and you say you're going to serve them, you literally need to be willing to serve them. It's not the other way around. They do not serve you. I'm very, very blessed by the amount of change that Maman Dantour has brought into my life. But I am in no way confused. And I do not believe that she's just going to do shit for me, no strings attached. Like, I know what this relationship is, right? And that's another thing. It's a relationship. That's another reason, like, why you guys have to change this understanding that they're just, these spirits that lay around with nothing to do until we call on them. Like, that's not how it works.
They're not laying around on clouds, eating fruit, plucking at parks. That's not what they are doing. They are making shit happen.
They're making shit happen.
For millions of
keeping
people.
the world going. Yeah. So you guys have to, it's really important that you change that understanding, because it's a relationship. And going back to one of the things we said at the beginning about popcorn prayers, like, it's a relationship. You sustain it through daily practice, through prioritizing it. The same way that it's rude and fucked up to ghost people in real life, you can't do that with a deity. And again, the consequences of doing that are much, much higher than if you were to do it with with just a regular person. You can't ask for things and then disappear. You have to sustain that relationship. You have to be willing to honor them. These negotiations about altars and what you need to put on the altars, those offerings are so small in comparison to what you get from being on this walk and how your life has changed, right? You can't walk into this being stingy. You can't. It's not going to work that way.
And you also can't buy a deity's work or their efforts with offerings, because they don't give a fuck about them oranges on your altar. They don't. They actually don't. Really. It's nice. It's a gift. It's a sign of admiration. It's a sign of respect. But don't think that just because you gave Obatala 8 eggs and you prayed his Oriki and you meditated, that he's obligated to do a damn thing for you, because he's not.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
I think we covered so many things in that nice little rant we had. I think we can go up to really accessibility of deity. The right to know. With the right to know. You, as a new person, do not, even as a person who's not new, no one really has the right to know anything. We all have to work very hard on a regular basis to be worthy of the knowledge of how to work with deity. Mm-hmm. Passwords and passcodes and shortcuts and in your spell work and all that stuff, that comes through work. That is not given to anybody. You have to work. You have to show that deity that you are serious about doing the work before they will start to work on your behalf. Mm-hmm. I'll let you say things.
Yeah, so these are closed practices, so y'all need to shut up. And like, like, y'all have to learn how to be quiet, how to be comfortable with not needing to know everything. And that's another thing about the right to know. These are closed practices. They include a lot of rite of passages. A lot of information is not going to come to you until you've done certain things. There are no steps to skip. If you try to skip a step, you're going to have a lot of consequences, both from the loa and then also socially, right? I know some people hate when I compare like spiritual initiation to sorority stuff, because it's absolutely not the same. But there is some overlaps, right? A lot of you guys know I'm in Zeta Phi Beta sorority. When I initiated when I was in my late teens, we did not have a whole lot of respect for people that were paper. We did not have a whole lot of respect for people that skated, right? And that is something that happens in spiritual community too. You can tell when somebody tried to skate or somebody tried to skip steps, when somebody thought that, sleeping with someone for information or bribing someone was going to get them. And it shows up in how they treat the community. So don't rely on that, because why would you even want to be that person? A, but B, it doesn't work. It only causes you more complications and consequences in the long run, right? That's something that you really need to be aware of. But yeah, everything is not your business. You don't need to know everything. Focus on the spirits that are working with you. Once you've worked with a proper priest or priestess, a Hugan, Mambo, a Ianifa, whatever practice you take on, when you've worked with a leader in that community and then you know what spirits are working with you, learn to understand those spirits. Develop strong relationship with those spirits. Again, don't fall into that Pokemon mentality of I gotta collect them all. Like you don't want to have haphazard relationships with a ton of spirits. Focus on the ones that are close to you, develop healthy relationships with them, and really, really nurture that. But it's not about knowing everything. Information hoarding is not going to help you in these practices.
Focus and it's like clout chasing to me.
Yes.
Like y'all chasing this idea to be a child of Oshun, and Oshun don't even walk with you. Chill out. Like, this is not how this works at all. Some deity you shouldn't even consider talking about unless you've been trained. Do not go to Olokun. Absolutely do not call on Olokun to do shit in your life. Olokun will fuck you up. He is, in my opinion, he's kind of like the Orisha version of Barone. Like he doesn't have as many roads as Barone, where he, one of them is a mass murderer or anything like that. But he, like, you don't just go to Olokun. People die initiating into Olokun. That is not an energy that you just want to go to because you feel like this raggedy person that you in a relationship is cheating on you or holding secrets. So you go to Olokun to reveal secrets. No, what Olokun is going to tell you that you are also raggedy. Okun is going to tell you that he's going to remind you how fucked up of a person you are. And he's going to remind you of the stuff that you tried to forget that happened in your childhood. All the bad shit, all the trauma that you have, he's going to bring all of that up. He ain't worried about that ashy person over there because you called on him, not that ashy person. So now he's coming after you. He's not going after that person. You cannot sick a deity on a person. It's not, they're not Rottweilers. That's not how this happens. They will come to you and affect changes in your life. They don't go and handle your light work. That's not what they do.
Do you want to talk a little bit about the difference between ancestors and deity? Because I have opinions on that too, but I want you to start.
There's lots of differences. But I think the key is your ancestors are not stronger than a deity. They are not stronger than an Orisha. They are not stronger than a Loa. And so when you go out here planting all this negative behavior and being messy, and then you incur the wrath of the community, and you say, oh, my ancestors got me. That's cute. But Obatala also got me. And so if you do something as so egregious to where Obatala feels like he has to step in and protect me, your ancestors can't do shit against Obatala.
Exactly.
Your ancestors, if you take it way too far with Hugan, which some of you have tried very quickly, if you take it way too far with Hugan doesn't have to do anything because the spirits that walk with Hugan will come after you. And if you know, like I said, I keep mentioning Barone for a reason. Go ahead and fuck around and find out what a Barone will do to you. If you keep antagonizing and disrespecting the institution that Barone built.
Mm-hmm.
This is not a good path for you. You really focus on your ancestors, focus on dealing with your ancestors, focus on being a better person, and then let all that other stuff come as it happens. Your ancestors are your first line of defense. They will protect you and they can protect you as long as you are in alignment. When you start getting too far out of alignment, your ancestors can't do anything because you are acting in a way that is so far left, they can't do anything. You have to try as best as possible to stay in alignment, even if you don't know your destiny because you haven't had that type of reading. You know right from wrong. You know not to be messy. You know not to be messy. You know, leave ashy people alone. You know not to gossip. You know not to go around hexing people. You know you need to divine, that type of thing. You know you need to have a relationship with your ancestors. Build up your ancestors. That way, when you get to that point, you're okay.
Yeah, y'all really got to stop sicking y'all like starved and dehydrated ancestors on people in these fights on the internet, because a lot of you guys know that you haven't taken care of them, and it's been generations of not taking care of them. If you put that energy into serving your ancestors, feeding your ancestors, connecting with your ancestors, getting lessons from your ancestors, you wouldn't even have to have these arguments with people and this back and forth with people. I'm not going to go on a tangent because that's just a frustrating thing that I see from people. It irks my soul whenever somebody does some ignorant shit and then they're like, well, my ancestors got me. Respectfully, they don't, because you're not feeding them, you're not taking care of them. A, B, if they had you, you wouldn't be having these interactions in the first place. And again, because you guys keep bringing up personal stuff, I know that from experience. Like, a lot of bullshit fell out of my life when my ancestral worship became more routine. And you know what I mean? And that's another thing. Going back to what Omo Morare said, your ancestors are enough. So that's another thing about the power chasing. Do you even have a good relationship with your ancestors before you run out and try to go after establishing a relationship with this deity? If you don't, then you may want to pause and work through the foundations of that, because if you don't even know how to keep an ancestral altar, how to honor that space, how to change those offerings regularly, how to have conversation with those spirits, then you don't know basic information that's going to position you to take on the work of working with deities. So that's another thing about, you really got to be careful about not skipping protocol, not skipping the work, right?
Mm-hmm.
Ignore her.
Yeah.
Ignore her.
Thank you for that reminder. And this really goes back to also like occult nature, because not everything should be given to everyone. And like I said with Olokun, that's not somebody, if you have not been trained to work with Olokun, just because you heard his name, just because you even have his Aleke, doesn't mean that you need to dive too deep into those waters. And that is a very specific metaphor. Mm-hmm. You don't want to do that, because it's just, it's not a good idea, first of all, but you're just not ready for some of that information. It takes years for every deity, not just Olokun. It takes years to really learn a deity, just the one.
Yes.
Let alone trying to learn 10 or 20 or all 401 Orisha. I don't know how many Loa there are, but I'm sure I can think of at least 10. So I know there's more than that. So it's not for everybody. And we're not interested in converting people either. Like, not everybody can be in this space, and that's okay. This isn't like Christianity, where the big thing is we want everybody to come with us because we want everybody to be saved. Because we know good and well that just because you're in here don't mean you're going to be saved from nothing. You still have to do the work.
Mm-hmm.
We can't save your soul. That's
Mm-hmm.
not our job. That's not our mission. Our mission is to help you become a better person.
Yeah.
But we can only do so much of that. It's to help you become a better person. We're not trying to get everyone into ATR. When we do ancestral life path readings, if the ancestors say that somebody belongs to voodoo and they had a reading with Priestess Oshun Fonke, she's going to tell them go to voodoo. She's not going to say, "Oh no, come with me." She's
Yeah.
not going to do that because that's not what the ancestors want. And the same is in reverse. My friend had a reading with Hounsi Sole, and I really thought that she was going to end up doing voodoo, but Hounsi Sole was like, "No, you should stay with Priestess Oshun Fonke. You should get into that program." And I was like, because I really thought I thought she was going to go to voodoo. She thought she was going to go to voodoo because that kind of attracted her, but that's not really where she's supposed to be.
Yeah.
And we no hard feelings, no harm, no foul at all.
Yeah. I think that's more spillover from church programming, right? Whereas in the Christian church, there's always this evangelizing, this need to recruit, to bring new people in. But again, because in ATR, it's about destiny and it's about path, like we respect that. So we're not trying to recruit, we're not trying to enroll. It's not about that. It's about making sure that we provide enough information so that people know what they need to do to keep them in alignment with their path. Absolutely.
And that that leads us into there has to be exchanges of energy. You don't get all this information without an exchange of energy. And the biggest exchange of energy that we know as humans, whether it be the Western world or any other part of the world, is there's a cost to this. And you cannot be cheap with spirit. Now, does that mean you need to get the finest of gems for your altar every time? No. But get gin. If they say gin, get gin. That doesn't mean, oh, you had tequila, so give them tequila. No. They said gin. Get gin. That's part of an exchange of energy just with your ancestors. But when it comes to the spiritual community, yes, we do this to help, but this takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of effort. We've come across these things in our time, in our practice, and that's taken a lot of time. And so it's not about the money, but there has to be some sort of exchange. We're not missionaries. We're not monks. This is not really a negotiable thing. Do we need you to give us $50 love donations? Absolutely not. If you got $5, $5 is fine with me. If you only got $2, $2 is fine with me. If you don't have any, but you share the link to a video, or you share the link to a free video, let me be specific, or you share the link to our reading pages, that's still an exchange of energy.
Yes.
It doesn't always have to be monetary. If you comment, if you say, hey, I want to show my friend, and you invite a friend to the group, you invite your friend to the Discord, that is an exchange of energy. But you gotta, if you're not doing those things, then the benefits will be greatly lessened to you, because you're not exchanging the proper amount of energy with us and with the community. Because the things you share with us, we can then share more with the community, because we are being replenished in a way by your efforts and your sharing of energy. And that gives us more energy to give more to you and the community.
Yeah. You don't want to be cheap with spirit. It just comes down to that. You really don't want to be cheap with spirit, whether it's being cheap with us or other priests and priestesses who are extensions of spirit. And again, that's not an arrogant statement. That's literally the job that we have. Like we are extensions of them. We are people that give information and discuss the rites of passage, right? But whether it's being cheap with us or not understanding that this walk is expensive, no joke. Like, I'm not saying that, like, I know what I've sacrificed in order to pour into my spiritual education. And I know that others put in that same amount of money, right? But you can't be so wrapped up in the release of those funds that you allow that to hold you back on your walk, right? And you also need to not be so arrogant to assume that people are obligated to give you those things. Ceremonies are expensive. These programs are expensive. Retreats are expensive. And you can't assume that people are going to. There are some ceremonies that last literal weeks. Would you have the audacity to look at someone in the face and expect them to give weeks of their life and time to you to put you through these processes without paying for it? You know what I mean? Like, you have to have a willingness. And that's part of the sacrifice, but that's also part of the character development, right? When you get these teachings and you learn that this is part of your path, take the information so that you can start doing things to open up those opportunities and create circumstances in your life so that you have it to give, so that you don't have to be cheap with your spirit. You don't have to be cheap with your path and your spiritual walk. Because again, I'm not saying this to flex. I'm just being really, really honest. A lot of you guys have known that initiation is a part of your life path for some times, and you have for some time now, and you haven't done it because you're cheap, right? And this is not something that you can be cheap with. You can't. You can't know that this is a part of your path and then 2-3 years later have not made progress towards certain things because you don't want to pay for stuff. But you'll pay for a vacation, or you'll pay to go out and get drunk, or you and these are not just I literally have cussed out some people that seek counsel for me about this particular issue this week, right? So I'm not just pulling this out of nowhere. And if you're watching, you know who you are. There are people that I work with where certain things have been called for them more than a year ago, and they've not made progress with it, but they found time to go on vacation. They found time to buy a new designer. They have the audacity to be following me on social media, and I see the shit that they spend on. So if you don't want me to say it, that's fine, but also acknowledge that all of that is thousands that could have been put towards you engaging in ceremony and deepening your education, right? Pouring that money into community to make sure that there is space to do programming that's going to sustain the community. Those are the things that once you take on this life, you have to prioritize, right? Not, being able to go to, what's the poppin' place in Mexico that everybody's obsessed with after the pandemic? Tulum. It's not about you being able to go to Tulum and take you pictures, because that, ain't no ceremonies down there. So why are you focusing on that, right? Those are the things that you need to be thinking about. Please know that the majority of us are fine. We're always going to be fine. Don't assume that this is us chasing money. We don't really need y'all like that because of what walks with us. We're taken care of. So know that. But we also know what we've released and what we have to do in order to make things shake in our life. So when you come to us and you're in our face literally for a year plus, and again, you know who you are, and you know that you've had certain callings and you haven't been able to make things shake, it's because you're being cheap with spirit. And that's just the reality of the situation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that goes back to what we talked about earlier, is changing your mindset. You make time for what you want. You have money for the things that you want. It's an investment. And it's really like the most insignificant thing is the money part, because time is more valuable than money, and you've wasted time at this point.
Mm-hmm.
So now you're wasting time and money.
Yeah, and the walk is the walk and the path is the path. So if you knew in 2020 that you were supposed to, have education under someone and go into initiation, and you avoid it, and you look up in 2023, you know what I mean? You wasted 3 years when you could have taken care of that a while ago and actually started your life, started this journey, right?
Absolutely.
So again, going back to this thing about not skipping steps, the path is the path, the walk is the walk. And it's going to be that if you choose to stagnate it for yourself, again, that's about your choices. But it's still going to be the path, and it's still going to be the walk, no matter how much you prolong it.
Absolutely. Do we want to move on to the last part?
Yeah, let's go ahead and get to the last part.
So the very last part is relationships and integration. So this is something that a lot of people don't even really think about when it comes to any type of religious practice or routine or protocol. There has to be a balance. You have to have balance, and you don't want to shut them out. This isn't a cult practice, so you can't just tell them everything you learn. They can't sit in all your classes and things like that. But you still want to be open about your practice. If you feel like you have to hide it, then either you shouldn't be practicing it or you shouldn't be around those people. And that is up to you to determine which needs to happen. Because either you're doing a lot of extra in your practice that you don't need to be doing right now. You're jumping ahead, you're skipping some steps, or you are around people who are not for your best and greatest good. So, and I'll give myself as an example. When I first started taking this like seriously, like when I joined the Facebook groups, my boyfriend, I didn't really say anything.
I'm not sure I understand.
Be quiet, Siri. I didn't say anything to my boyfriend, but he saw like I had an altar. He saw as the altar progressed, he saw that part. And he's seen everything leading up, and he is 100% supportive of that. But I don't tell him very much. I don't tell him everything that's going on. I mentioned something about an Obatala offering, and he said, "Who's Obatala?" And I gave him a very, short kind of shtick on Obatala. And he was like, "Oh, that's dope." And then we went about our business. So, and you also have to accept that the path may not be the same. So my job is not to convert him and get him to come. I know who walks with him because I've asked the question. But that's not for me to place on him at this time in his life. He's not there. And so I'm going to let my efforts and my work speak enough so that when he's ready, he knows that he can come to me and we can figure it out and I can guide him in the proper direction. Same thing with my kids. I don't try to make them practice with me. My daughter is very hands-on. She likes to help. And so I say, "Hey, do you want to help me do this?" If she says yes, great. If she says no, fine. Then go in another room because you can't be in here. Either you're helping or you're out of this room. And usually she will gather herself and go into another room. Or she'll sit and she'll be like, "Can I just watch?" And I'll be like, "Yep, you sure can." And she sits and she watches. But those things are fine. But you definitely have to figure out the balance in your own relationships while on this walk. Because if you're trying to hide it or you're trying to keep it separate, sorry, somebody called me.
You're good. Ain't it a trip how people don't be thinking about us all day long, but then the second that we
Right.
I know that happens to me all the time.
But yeah, that's what I wanted to say about that particular section.
Another thing is that, so if you take on this walk and you are dedicated to it because you are improving as a person, the impact of your relationships or the experience you have of your relationships is going to improve drastically. Just because you're improving as a person, right? You have more clarity. You are able to communicate differently. You're aware of what your blind spots are when you do this work, right? Now, that does not mean that your walk is going to mirror someone else's just because they're your partner, your child, family member, etc. And Omaware touched on that a little bit. I'm bringing this up because I've seen this a lot, especially with people who are in relationship. When they take on an ATR, they have this assumption that their goal is, or their responsibility is, to convert their partner. That's not always true. And actually, majority of the time, it's not true, right? Your partner may have another practice that's on their calling, that's part of their calling. Or even if they are called to engage in your practice, that doesn't mean that you guys can just go chopping it up about the things that your deity is placed on you in terms of responsibility or your walk, right? Again, this is it's a relationship. So just the same way you have a relationship with your partner, your relationship with your deity is yours. So there may be stuff that you never get to explain or share with your partner. You have to be comfortable with that and understand that is your obligation, right? I've seen people come in with these fantasies of like, my husband's going to be a child of Dambala and I'm going to be a child of Aida and we're going to, no, again, this is not a video game. These are not Pokemon. You cannot make these attachments. You have no idea how it's going to show up. And you have to be comfortable with the fact that, the relationship with deity is going to be something that your partner has that you may not be a part of because you're not supposed to, right? So understanding and respecting that this is going to be an aspect of your life that, again, because this is closed practice and because everything can't be shared, that you're not going to be able to share with your partner and your partner may not be able to share with you.
Yes. Sorry. I agree with everything you said. I'm putting on shoes.
Okay. I figured you were doing something.
Particularly that like love story we create in our head. Because I'm going to be 100% honest. I actually had that in my head as well, because at the time when I first had my ancestral life path reading, I had Obatala and Oya.
Mm-hmm.
And knowing what I knew about Oya, I know that she is very close to Shango. And knowing what I know about Shango, in my head, I felt like Shango was definitely my boyfriend, right? And so in my head, I created this whole little goofy ass love story that we were Oya and Shango. And then when I got my Aleges, guess who wasn't there? Oya. And so then I have Achosi, Aje Olokun,
Mm-hmm.
and I still have Obatala. So, and there is no Oshun. Oshun is not walking with me other than the fact that I am part of an Oshun coven. That is it. Like, we are not besties. So y'all not going to hear me talking about I'm a child of Oshun ever in life. I don't even like the color yellow. I hate it. So it's you. Yeah. Don't impose your will, just like we said, you shouldn't be imposing your will upon the deity. Don't impose your will upon your relationships, whether they be romantic or not. When it comes to this walk, let them be what they are. Meet people where they are and let that be. And whoever is meant to stay around as you do this is who is meant to stay around, because trust me, people will leave and you got to be okay with that.
Mm-hmm.
You really do. And it may be a relationship. It may be a parent in some cases. It may be your best friend. It may be, a job that just isn't in alignment with where you need to be. But the more in alignment you will be, the more you will be blessed by people and things that are in alignment with you. Absolutely. So if you got to lose some shit, oh well.
Yeah.
So that's all I got.
Well, I think we're at the end now. Is there anything you want to say before we wrap up and close out?
No, this was really fun. I enjoyed this a lot. And we even went deeper than I thought we were going to in some of these things.
Yeah.
Because this became an organic conversation. And then people in the comments too. Thank you, everybody who's been commenting and adding to the discussion, whether it was pleasant or not, it still added to the conversation. And it was things that clearly needed to be said, or else they wouldn't have come up. So thank you, everyone. And thank you for the love donations for those of you who have sent them. We greatly appreciate them.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to our follow-up talks because we done came up with 3 subcategories.
So many.
Yes, goodness. I think we need to start with the spiritual consequences of chasing dick and money. Because I swear to God, though, it's like those are the primary things that people come to us for. And it's like once you start talking to the spirits around them, those are the things that they need to be the least concerned
with. Baby, your kids is failing kindergarten. How about you focus on them kids? Okay.
You have a 200 credit score. Let's
focus on the ashy dick that you've been fucking for the past 5 years that you have a kid with, not the new ashy dick that you're trying to trap with a new kid. How about focus on one ashy dick at a time?
And how about your worry over it is what's repelling it? You know what I mean? Dick is abundant and low in value. Money is a flow of energy that's going to always be in your life. And the worry over it is probably what's repelling it in your life. And that's more important to figure out that than it is to.
And that is a hard lesson to learn. That is a very hard lesson to learn. It's something that everyone needs to learn quick as fuck. I still struggle with that. So I listen, Ajay Olakun is around my neck because I need her, not because I have her. And so I have to I'm still working on my concepts of money and the flow of money so that I can get things that I really want. I will always be taken care of. I will always have the things I need. Yeah. But I have to, if I want more than that, if I want to live in the abundance, then I have to change how I perceive and deal with and work with money. That's why Ajay is with me.
Something I'm working on. I mean, that's part of the reason why I teach financial trauma recovery. It's not because I just was born into having that topic on lock. Like, I've had to do my own personal work around it. So it's mostly me just taking my information that I've learned and marrying it with my spiritual education and teaching people on it. But I do think it's something that we said it jokingly, but it is a class we need to teach because I do think that that was a part of my work. My work and my walk was learning the ways in which my worry about certain things was actually repelling it from my life, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. We will definitely work on that class.
Yes, absolutely. I'm looking forward to it. All right, you all. Well, thank you so much for joining us. As you guys already heard, we will be back sometime in the near future with another conversation. We really, really hope that you guys enjoyed this. Where do we go for that financial recovery? Some of my classes are on my acuity over at voodooinstitute.com/Sole. I also have classes at Soleil's Conjure Shop. My website is literally just www.soleconjureshop.com. So, and I also have some classes that I'm going to be teaching about. I'm be real. I had to stop for a little bit because we as a people, and I say this all the time in my classes, you cannot be a person of African descent born in the United States and not have a certain amount of financial trauma on your spirit just because of what they did to us, right? And so sometimes I have to take breaks from those conversations just because of the things we unpack are so heavy. So I'm probably not going to do more new financial recovery workshops until November or so. But you can definitely go and see my old work at www.voodooinstitute.com/SOLE. Mariah, you want to tell them where they can find some of your classes and some of the stuff that you work on?
Yes. So if you're actually watching this from my YouTube, in the description of this video is the link, and it has all of my information in it. So you can just go to Linktree, which is linktr.ee /EnchantedVibesSpiritual. And once you go there, it will take you to all the places that you need, including Saturday Morning Groove, which is a free fitness class type thing that we do every Saturday. And a couple other things on there too. The link to this YouTube if you're not watching it yet, if you're watching it later. But yeah, there's lots of stuff on there. All my social media is on there. My name is the same everywhere. So you're never going to see my real name. I'm just kidding.
I'm working on that. I'm working on having this be my primary name, because every now and then you guys call me by my professor name, and I'm like, ooh.
No, ma'am. No, ma'am.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, everyone, for joining me. Thank you, Hounsi Sole, for even suggesting that we teach a class together. But this has been amazing.
With me. This was such a great experience. I can't wait to do it again.
Yes, it was.
All right. You guys enjoy the rest of your Saturday, and we'll see you all soon. Take care.
Bye, y'all.